Number 10. Brian Morrison. You know, the drummer from that one band? I don't know, he sounds like a drummer. We'll start with a recent addition to Marvel Comics. Brian Morrison made his first debut in X-Men Gold Volume 2, issue 36. He was a pretty average kid until, you know, he wasn't all of a sudden. He entered this frantic state and then he was this living embodiment of power. He looked like he was made of lava almost. It was a scary situation. Buildings, roads, people, animals, all destroyed. Just do not get in his way. Now Cerebro obviously caught this action, and then when the X-Men arrived, Kitty tried to reason with the New Mutant, and it worked for a little bit. He calmed down, he went back to human mode, and then he was asked to come to Xavier Institute for Mutant Education and Outreach, you know, to sharpen up on these new intimidating powers. But an angry townsfolk was still heartbroken over the damage caused beforehand, and then put a bullet in his head. That was a soft sounding gun. A bullet into his head. Now at first the doctors actually didn't want to operate. Because of his powers, they didn't want to administer any anesthesia, and then he'd go all god mode and destroy everyone. Fair. But luckily Dr. Kozaneski agreed to perform surgery on the mutant. They changed their mind about how they felt about mutants. It was a nice moment. So not only did he survive, but he also joined the team right after that. We're off to a good start on this list, I'd say, yeah. Number 9. Exodus. Described as one of the most powerful mutants alive, Exodus is an Omega level telekinetic, and he can lift around 100 tons of weight all telekinetically, like I just said. He was born in the 12th century and he made his first appearance in X Factor 92, and from birth, Bennett felt different. Like he had this power deep within him, something was there, but he wasn't quite sure what it was. Now at this time, he was an adult, he was a crusader who was best friends with the Black Knight of that era, Eobard Garrington. But then when he finally arrived to the Tower of Power all alone, he was exhausted. He had traveled far and wide to get there, and then when he arrived he heard a voice, and it spoke to him asking if he was willing to risk everything to become powerful. And he's like, yes. Whoever that is, yes, definitely, yes. Then his powers manifested. So now in X-Men Legacy, he brought Professor X back from the dead, and then in New X-Men Volume 2, issue 46, he regenerated damaged organs, which honestly, not bad for a guy who's now immortal as well. And before we continue on with this list, we want to ask you guys to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. I mean, if you're still with us now, odds are you're liking it enough, so just give it a little tap, and then we'll get right back into this list. Easy peasy. Number 8, Strife. Making his debut in New Mutants issue 87, Strife was the clone of Nathan Summers, the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. So he's a clone of Cable from the future, and he has this bad armor. He's a telepathic and telekinetic mutant, and unlike Cable, who has to devote his psionic powers to ensure this techno-organic virus doesn't get his right side as well, Strife doesn't need to worry about all that jazz. And obviously Apocalypse wanted this child. He wanted to raise the clone himself so that down the road he could one day claim the body as his own. Not a bad idea. Apocalypse named him Strife, and of course he had evil running through every lesson that he taught him. Number 7, Matthew Malloy. While some mutants seek out the hashtag Omega lifestyle, others just want an ordinary lifestyle. Not everybody wants superpowers, especially Matthew Malloy, that's for sure. I mean, his name alone, he doesn't have like a cool evil alias, he's just Matthew. Hey, it's Matthew. Old Eminem, Matthew Malloy. He appears for the first time in Uncanny X-Men Volume 3, issue 23, and he doesn't last long. Spoilers, sad spoilers. But it's a good reason, kind of, not really. One day in Charleston, South Carolina, Matt and his wife Jules were having an argument. It was a little bit heated, and then all of a sudden she vaporized. Yeah, the Skrulls have great timing, I guess. And that of course traumatized him, and then a year later when he finally saw Jules' sister, his late wife's sister Alana, well, more bad stuff happened. He got so upset when he saw her and he started to remember all these things that his powers manifested, and he released this explosion of energy. Heartbroken energy. Alana's life was taken this time as well, so it's just getting worse and worse. His powers were uncontrollable. Multiple X-Men were biting the bullet after trying to stop this guy. So Tempest thought, you know what, let's just go back in time, and with the help of Professor X, also from the past, we can make sure Matthew's parents never meet and then never and have him. Fair, good point. And the way Charles does it too is so casual. He's like, alright, ready? We're good. Let's go home.
Number 6. Tempest. Eva Bell is another member of the Five. She has actually appeared in less issues than Egg, if you can believe it, despite the fact that she has a pretty neat power set, and it's been neat since the beginning, which allows her to time travel. Tempest, as she used to be known, was able to control the passage of time in a specific pocket of space. She could also slow time in a current space that she also inhabited, either slowing time around her or creating time bubbles to manipulate time in that bubble, where she could speed it up or slow it down. The only challenge for her has been losing control of her powers, which can cause them to behave unpredictably. Still, controlling time is a pretty impressive and powerful ability to have. Number 5. Empath. Manuel de la Rocha made his first appearance in the original New Mutants series, where he was part of Emma Frost's team known as the Hellions. He's recently reappeared in the newest Hellions series from 2020 and proves just how powerful, but also how sadistic he can be. Empath's power is, you guessed it, empathy, and he can use this power to not only sense others' emotions, but also to control them, in effect manipulating others into doing whatever he wishes them to do. His influence can be subtle, such that someone might not even realize they're being manipulated by him, or it can be more forceful, turning his victims into complete husks of their former selves and bending them fully to his will. Number 4. Vulcan. Vulcan is one of the most powerful mutants around, being an Omega level mutant, skilled in energy manipulation and absorption. Yet he is somehow the lesser known of all the Summers despite his insane power levels. He has also demonstrated the ability to absorb his opponent's powers as well and use them for himself on the rare occasion. Vulcan is the youngest Summers brother, also known as Gabe Summers, and we only learned of his existence in 2006 when he first appeared in the comic X-Men Deadly Genesis issue number 1, and yet he is considered the most powerful of these three. Number 3. Orphan Maker and Nanny. Orphan Maker still remains a relatively mysterious character, though is also one who still proves to be a force to be reckoned with in combat. Orphan Maker is also known as Peter and was part of a plot of Mr. Sinister's originally. However, when Mr. Sinister decided that Peter could not be controlled, he decided to eliminate him. Nanny, an insane cyborg, however, saved him, believing it was her responsibility to look after orphan mutant children and protect them. Although I will say she's got a weird way of going about it. While insane, Nanny was also once a scientist and remains quite intelligent. She actually outfitted Orphan Maker with weapons and a powerful suit to help her in her task. While it's still unclear as to what Orphan Maker's true mutant powers are, and while he seems to still have the mind of a child, probably due to Nanny's manipulation, his suit and weapons make him a formidable foe in combat, and he often uses pixie dust in battle to help Nanny influence and control the minds of their opponents, as she herself is a telepath, but a weak one, so she needs a little bit of help. Needs a little bit of pixie dust. Even during a fight with Cyclops, Scott's optic blasts were unable to harm Orphan Maker while he was in his armor, with Scott's blast simply reflecting off the armor, causing more harm than help really. Number 2. Trinary. Considering the modern age we live in, Trinary is a pretty powerful mutant. Her abilities allow her to control all tech that is within her line of sight. She has used these powers to move massive sums of money digitally and to manipulate and control Sentinel tech. Currently on Krakoa, Trinary is one of the few technopathic mutants trusted with the important project known as Sleeping Giant, wherein mutants monitor for upcoming advancement in Sentinel technology, such as Nimrods or the creation of a mother mold, so that they can ideally put a stop to its development. Project Sleeping Giant were instrumental in helping the X-Men to destroy a mother mold that Orchis was creating before it went online. Number 1. Bailey Hoskins. Now you might think I'm joking here if you happen to know the obscure Bailey Hoskins, but I'm really not. Bailey appeared in his own miniseries titled X-Men, Worst X-Man Ever. He was known for being the worst X-Man ever because his ability only allowed him to do one thing, explode. But he didn't have any regeneration powers, so he basically was a mutant who could never use his powers, otherwise he'd kill himself. It's kind of a one-hit wonder. So how is that powerful? Well, it's also implied in the series that when he does choose to sacrifice himself and blow up the villain of the story, that he makes it possible for Earth 616 to come into existence. So without him, we wouldn't have the main Marvel continuity that we know and love today, potentially. If saving the entire continuity from becoming a dystopian future isn't powerful, then I don't know what is.
Number 10. Iceman. Bobby Drake made his first X-Men debut in X-Men issue 1. Now his powers are pretty obvious. I mean, even his name alone should tip you off. He can lower his external and internal body temperature because there are nerves that regulate body temperature and they're found in a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. See, Bobby can override this nerve drastically. His mutation allows him to withstand sub-zero temperatures and turn into ice within seconds. He can fully control ice, snow, probably snow cones, realistically. He can freeze the moisture in the air just like Frozone own and create anything that he imagines. He can also create cold clones of himself on a molecular level, so you won't even see him coming, but you'll definitely feel it. Number 9. Elixir. Josh Foley made his comic book debut in New Mutants Volume 2, Issue 5. Now, he was detected by Cerebro, and his Omega power is actually quite helpful in this case. So he obtains an Omega class healing ability, and around M-Day he was actually considered a general threat, weirdly enough. See, Elixir is able to control the biological structure of his and others' bodies. I mean, down to the genetic level. He can produce biomolecular energy whenever he chooses, affecting any matter that he chooses to come into contact with. So if he uses his powers too much, he'll pass out and just remain in a coma. It takes a toll on him. His DNA reboots itself, which is pretty impressive. I mean, I get a bruise and it hangs out for like an entire week. What's going on there? He was able to regrow Prodigy's heart in New X-Men Volume 2, Issue 39, and he cured X-23 of the legacy virus, and Josh himself says that he can cure Sabretooth from the inversion effect. What a combo. This guy can also bring people back from the dead. You can't really beat that. Number 8. Legion. David Haller made his comic debut in New Mutants issue 26. He was a child of Xavier and Gabrielle Haller, who later became the Israel ambassador to the United Kingdom. So the parents, I mean, there's a lot of pressure there already. See, he was kind of an accident. It happens. The pair had an affair decades back, but Charles was unaware that she was pregnant when he left her. Now, the child was of course born a mutant with telepathic and telekinetic abilities, but he also had the ability to cause destruction with just his mind. The old Charles gene coming into play. Scott Summers describes David as Omega level, and the reason he's named Legion, well, it comes from the biblical demon Legion, where a man was possessed by many evil spirits, because David has 3 different personalities. All the powers with all the personalities. That's a scary, you don't want that. You don't want to run into him. Number 7, Kid Omega. I mean, yeah, Omega is literally in his name, so we have to include Kid Omega. Meet Quintavious Quire. He made his first appearance in X-Men issue 134. He's been described as one of the most powerful telepaths next to Jean Grey, who may or may not be on this list later on. I'll never tell. But he was once a host of the Phoenix Force as well. He was one of Xavier's prized pupils until he put together the Omega Gang. He wasn't always a bad kid. It's just, you see, what happened was on his birthday, when he was still young, he received a call from his parents to say that, oh, you're adopted. Happy birthday. Awesome. And these kids are the hardest gang in town. They handle humans the way that they want, with violence, cool haircuts, and monologues, of course. Now, he's been described as Omega level telepath and telekinetic and scion. Not bad for a kid. Number 6, Mastermind. Jason Wingard made his first appearance in X-Men issue 4. Now, he started off as a carnival mentalist, but was soon recruited into the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants from Magneto himself. He was needed for a very specific job. See, Jason, well rather Mastermind, was hired to use his illusionary powers to change Lorna Dane's memories so that she doesn't know that she's Magneto's daughter. Instead, she was made to believe that her parents had actually passed in a plane crash when she was just a wee child. Mastermind's power was also a necessity when it comes to taking over the country of Santo Marco. Mastermind was tasked to create an illusory army, and then he smiled as Magneto took over. He was like his little sidekick, little magician sidekick. He was like David Blaine, but like, you know, evil and a sidekick. Once Mastermind cast an illusion of Cyclops to surprise Magneto, great prank, awesome, but Magneto ended up using a magnetic blast back, and then Scarlet Witch was the only real one in the way. It's just a prank, dude, it's just a prank, relax. Number 5, Lactuca the Knower. Making their first appearance in Planet-Size X-Men yesterday, how lovely, Lactuca was a member of the Great Ring of Araco. Now, their power could come in handy around the house. They simply know the location of everything, and yes, including that one shirt that you still can't find. Where is it? Maybe the cottage? Maybe it's at the cottage. They helped out Marvel Girl and Exodus actually when they had to move the entire island of Araco to Mars. Yeah, that's quite the move. All hands on deck. They're an Omega level mutant with extreme spatial awareness, but it's still unknown if that means the universe that they're in, or if that also includes the multiverse. We're still trying to figure that out in comics. Either way, there's room on this list for that new mutant. Number 4, Maddie, aka The Weapon. Good nickname. Maddie made her first debut in Deadpool vs. Old Man Logan issue 1. She was a mutant who started to steal others' belongings in school. Now, she didn't mean to by any means, but they would just kind of teleport to her all of a sudden. Then one day when she was missing her father, he was working far away, she hadn't seen him in about a year, she accidentally teleported him to her. What a pleasant surprise. He was like mid-shovel too. Only thing was, this does a lot of damage to a human being, so they don't often survive this cosmic commute. So now she was detected by Cerebro, so Logan investigated what was going on. And that's when she ran into Wade, who also joined in on the fun. Now in actuality, Maddie wanted to be captured by Genform so that she herself could understand her powers more. But then when Genform abducted her and did experiments, she was then forced to teleport these massive vehicles and structures over Deadpool in order to crush him. Now the way Maddie helped him out was pretty cool, I gotta admit. She teleported Wolverine's claws into Wade's fists, and then he dug his way out. And yes, in case you were wondering, the claws were returned afterwards. Maddie took care of Genform's leader, Agent Hart, 2 months later herself. We love revenge. Nice. Number 3, Decimus Furious. Decimus Furious sounds like a Harry Potter spell. Decimus Furious made his first debut in Uncanny X-Force issue 1. He was born in Rome. Both of his parents sadly passed away when he was really young, so he had no choice but to live in the streets. So then around 281 AD, yeah, this was a little while ago, that's when his powers emerged. He started to attack people randomly until he was eventually locked up. He didn't really know what was going on, but it also didn't take long for his skills to be used in the Colosseum as a gladiator. He fought every day for his life for a few years, with freedom being that glorious prize that he's always chasing after. He was soon worshipped as the dark god Minotaur, so yeah, he was kind of killing it. He was picked as Apocalypse's final horseman, the horseman of war, of course, and he fought Deadpool, and then soon he fought the entire X-Force. This guy was a unit. He had war-filled psyche, so if you try and read his mind, it will backfire, and then you'll be overthrown with sorrow and hate. Plus, you don't want to get too close to this guy anyways, because one hit from his axe, and you'll soon have the cold thirst for war, just attacking people around you for no reason. Number 2, Iska. Iska the Unbeaten, there's a name for you. She made her first debut in X-Men Volume 5 issue 12 just last year, so also quite new. Iska was one of the many who lived on Okara. Now when her sister, Genesis, had 4 children, Iska forged the Scarab to celebrate, which was his epic sword divided into 4 parts. She gave it to her brother, Apocalypse, brother by marriage. Very important to say, brother by marriage, not blood brother. Now the Scarab was a symbol of the Genesis line of Okara, and when the mutants went to battle with the Amenthi Daemons, Iska betrayed her kind and then joined Annihilation's army. Traitor. I mean, well, her power is literally to not lose, so it made sense. Yeah, so she obtains what's called Tychokinesis, so never play poker with her because you'll lose. Because she can't lose. She literally can't lose. One-on-one, battles, dance-offs, you name it, she'll win them all. Probability is manipulated in her favor, and on top of that, she can also shapeshift if need be. Like when she joined Annihilation, her body was then covered in all these occult symbols. And then when she's aligned with the X-Men, her skin turns from red to gold. How neat. Number 1, Gabriel Shepard. Making his debut in X-Men Volume 3, issue 36, Gabriel Shepard was the last of the Proto-Mutants. That's when the X-Gene was first evolved. So that was like 700 years ago, and luckily he was the most powerful and average looking, so he took on new identities, always moved about, he played it safe. He was blending in as a human, until the X-Men tracked him down to ask him about all these proto-mutants. But Gabriel's powers were already in play here. See, he read their minds, and then learned that the other proto-mutants had been resurrected to be used just as a weapon. But they didn't say any of that in the pitch. So he got upset and attacked. Then Pixie sent him to a timeout in Antarctica. And then after he cooled down, pun intended, he had a conversation with Pixie about the past and then decided to never let proto-mutants be used again, including himself. And then he turned himself into pure energy. What a way to go.
Number 10, Madeline Pryor. You might consider having Madeline on this list today cheating since she is a clone of Jean Grey, but I don't care, she deserves to be talked about. Originally the love interest and first wife of X-Men leader Cyclops, Madeline was a frequent member of the X-Men supporting cast until a series of terrible events. You know, her husband leaving, losing her son, and finding out she's actually a clone, which led her down a path of villainy. It's discovered that when Phoenix took her own life, a fragment of the Phoenix Force entered the body of the clone, and that's what gave her life and sentience, which Sinister took as an opportunity to attract Scott so that the two could procreate and make one of the most powerful mutants out there. Since Madeline was cloned from Jean Grey's DNA, she was essentially another version of Jean, and possessed Jean's telekinetic and telepathic abilities, although it's never stated if she was actually classified as an Omega level mutant as well. During the 2012 Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, Mr. Sinister had created a group of 6 Madeline Pryor clones in order to take the Phoenix Force energies from the Phoenix 5, consisting of the Phoenix Force empowered Cyclops, Colossus, Emma Frost, Magik, and Namor. Unlike the original Madeline, none of these 6 clones showed indication of having individual personalities or free will, but instead appeared to follow Sinister completely. The Madeline Pryor clones joined Sinister's other clone creations in fighting the Phoenix 5 and managed to defeat each one. They also were able to siphon some of the energy from the Phoenix Force, but they were all immediately killed by the entity itself. Check her out for yourself, starting with 1983's Uncanny X-Men number 168. Number 9, Stepford Cuckoos. Known as 3-in-1 and then later 4-in-1, 5-in-1, and 1000-in-1, the Stepford Cuckoos are the product of Weapon XIV, or Weapon 14. Meaning they are clones created from the genetic template of Emma Frost that were created for the purpose of killing every mutant on Earth. Thousands of these clones exist dormant, however only 5 were sent to infiltrate the Xavier Institute in order to hone their skills and gain intel. As mutants with powers similar to Emma Frost, the girls have shown that they are capable of telepathy, mind alteration, astral projection, and the infamous organic diamond form that give them psionic immunity, super strength, stamina, and durability. However, what sets them apart from Frost is that the Cuckoos can selectively harden parts of their bodies as needed. During the War Song storyline, an unstable fraction of the Phoenix Force sparked inside the girls, and their dormant weapon plus nanotech inside their bones was activated. This nanotech briefly reanimated Sophie and Esme, who directed their sisters back to the world to activate Sublime's plan for the destruction of the mutant race. The Phoenix and Sublime both wrestled for control of the Cuckoos until the X-Men arrived. Phoebe and Mindy were captured and integrated into Sublime's machine, but the Phoenix was able to possess Celeste. When Celeste was finally merged into the machine, the Phoenix was divided between all the Cuckoos and trapped in their newly emerged second mutation, their organic diamond hearts. Eventually, Celeste was able to take full control of the Phoenix, destroyed her sisters, and trapped the Phoenix fragments inside the 3-in-1's flawless diamond hearts, rendering them all emotionless. Check out these sisters for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 2001's New X-Men number 118. Number 8. Emma Frost, Earth 92,124. Hailing from Earth 92,124, an alternate reality where Amazonia conquered the world very early on, making females the dominant sex across the globe, slowly eliminating the male gene altogether, comes Emma Frost, the hero known as White Phoenix in this reality. This Emma Frost is said to possess all the powers of Emma Frost and the Phoenix Force, which already makes you think she's incredibly strong, and you'd be exactly right. These powers include, but are definitely not limited to, telepathy, mind cloaking, astral projection, mental paralysis, telekinesis, and of course, the organic diamond form that protects her from psychic attacks and also grants her super strength, stamina, and durability. White Phoenix was a member of the Avengers who worked with President R2 and helped capture the Y-Men leader Hercules. However, all but White Phoenix had grown disillusioned with the president and teamed up with Hercules and Gorgon in confronting her. White Phoenix stayed by the president's side but was held hostage by Wolverine, unfortunately. Give this Emma story a read for yourself in 2009's Incredible Hercules number 124 to number 125. Number 7. Quentin Quire. Also known as Kid Omega, Quentin joined the Xavier Institute after Professor X's return from averting a war with Genosha and the rebuilding of the X Mansion. Quire is depicted as an Omega-level mutant possessing advanced cognitive and telepathic abilities, which enable him to organize and construct his thoughts at accelerated rates, overtly or covertly manipulate the minds of others, resist mind probes, and disable other forms of psychic manipulation. His level of psychic influence on others depends on the number of people he wants to affect, meaning it's stronger when he focuses on less people, of course. After he was hurt pretty badly and was kept semi-alive in Beast's lab, he was found by the Phoenix Force, and although it didn't accept him as a host, it woke him up from his coma and reconstituted his body. He eventually heads out to find the Phoenix Force, and when he does, he winds up releasing it, asking it to revive Sophie, his love. Sophie refused to come back to life, and the Force left him to wallow in his own self-pity. Fast forward a bit and we see the Phoenix Force allow Quentin to absorb some of its power, which he ends up sacrificing to save Jubilee from dying. Now, although he didn't have it for long and didn't actually have access to the full powers of the Phoenix Force, he was still capable of interstellar travel, pyrokinesis, and of course, resurrection. Check out Quentin's story for yourself, starting with 2003's New X-Men number 134.
Number 6. Vulcan. He named himself after the Roman god of fire, so you already know that we're But Vulcan's real identity was that of Gabriel Summers. See, he was born after Cyclops and after Havoc. Well, not really born, he was surgically removed from his mother's body and then placed in an incubator accelerator, aged to be at his prime, and then sent to Earth to work for Devon Shikari, so a little bit different than the other guys. He escaped and was found by Moira McTaggart with no memories of who he is or where he came from, which is always good. But as a student, he was impressing Charles a lot, and all he wanted to do really was learn his abilities so he can help others. You can't beat that, come on, the guy, he's got a good heart. Sounds like the dream student. Now he can psionically manipulate energy however he wants. He can manipulate other mutant powers, and that's the scary part with Vulcan. He suppresses all of your superpowers. Emma Frost, Rachel Gray, and Xavier have all confirmed that after the events of M-Day, this alpha level mutant absorbed energies from the depowered mutants and then became an omega level one himself. Number 5. Storm. Aurora Monroe made her debut in Giant-Sized X-Men issue 1. She was recruited by Charles and joined the team to save other original students from Krakoa. Now, she was appointed leader after several years of hard work, and Storm has been referred to as a witch before because her powers to control the air and the elements, all that jazz. I mean, fair, she's kind of witch-like. Now, things go up a notch in X-Men issue 135 during the Dark Phoenix saga. Sebastian Shaw calls her a weather witch. Adds the word weather before, okay, it's a bit specific. See, it's not not just storms and earth that Aurora can control, even in space she can summon natural energy. Doesn't matter where you are, she'll find you. Number 4, Mr. M. Mr. M first appeared in District X issue 2. His powers came to be after an accident, like most of them. See, he accidentally turned a boy bullying his cousin inside out, and then he was stuck like that for 3 hours. That's the worst thing I can think of, I think. He didn't have lots of friends, I mean, obviously. The only ones close to him was Hannah Levy, who was not an Omega level mutant per se, but she did eat bugs. After M Day, Mr. M himself was one of the few who kept his powers. Now those Omega level powers being, well, I mean, this guy can literally do it all. He can control machines, resurrect the dead, phase through objects, manipulate matter, telekinesis, telepathy, and much, much more. Number 3, Proteus. Kevin McTaggart is of course related to Moira McTaggart, as you could have guessed right then. Now he's the son of her and her husband Joseph. Now their marriage was awful. Joseph was a total piece of shit. He was abusive physically and mentally, so Moira got out of there. She didn't even tell Joseph that she was pregnant, and to be honest, it's probably for the best. Guy's the worst. So young Kevin and Moira lived together at her mutant research center off the coast of Scotland. Now Kevin, as he got older, manifested abilities, which basically was this uncontrollable need for power. See, he craved it, his body needed it, so Moira had to hide him. She kept him locked in a cell for years, only referred to as Mutant X, because she wanted to keep him safe, and also others, you know? So one day while Magneto was fighting the X-Men, his cell was damaged and he got out. Now since the isosteric energy in his cell was no longer holding him back, Kevin defeated Polaris, he defeated Multiple Man, and even escaped the Phoenix. He survived the Phoenix, that's crazy. Now his body was starting to burn out like Moira tried to prevent all this time. So the only solution here was that he had to possess another human host, and then another one after that, and so on and danforth. Now he renames himself Proteus, with his imagination being the only thing that limits his powers. He's made of psionic energy, and he too can warp reality. Every time he possesses a new host, he gets stronger and stronger until eventually the host burns out and then he has to possess another poor soul. What a horrible, vicious cycle. Number 2, Franklin Richards. I was the impossible boy who could dream the future. I was a god, born to be with the mutants, but also born into the Fantastic Four, which means I have twice as many enemies. Damn, you could say that again, Franklin. He was born in New York City. Franklin Richards is the son, of course, of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, and he is quoted from Galactus himself as the most powerful mutant ever. That is quite, put that on a resume, that sounds great. He's a mutant beyond Omega power, in fact. See, Franklin was a member of Gen X, and he's also a future X-Men member in the Ultimate X-Men comics. Now, some of his powers include vast reality warping, psionic powers, he has control over the universe, so that's cool, must be nice. Precognitive powers are also helpful even when he's dreaming. His dreams will tip him off on the future and what's going to happen in them. Now, the only dreams I have are the ones where my teeth are falling out, or I can't run and my legs are made of rubber or something like that, you know? It's not as fun. He can resurrect the dead, he can time travel, he can teleport, astral project, and he can duplicate planets and or people. So if your eyebrows aren't raised yet, that's fine, I can continue. At a young age, he was able to create a pocket universe. And in Fantastic Four issue number 604, this kid took not only 1, but 3 Celestials. One of them, he laid them out with just 1 punch. So impressive. And finally, number 1, Jean Grey. Of course, we have to end on Jean Grey. She is an Omega level mutant born with telekinetic and telepathic powers. She was one of the OG members of the X-Men. Now, seeing the potential in Jean's strength, the Phoenix Force attached itself to her while she was in space with the Fantastic Four. It was drawn to her natural power. See, Xavier himself felt like he had to hide her true powers from her when she was just a child. He locked some of her abilities away in her mind. So the Phoenix Force was like, I smell something, what is that? What's hiding somewhere? So this dark cosmic force started to change her, and she didn't just get more powerful, she ended up becoming, well, low-key, she kind of became a villain. She ended up destroying an entire solar system that killed like, I don't know, billions of people, and then she took her own life in order to keep the universe safe. Now, a few years later, it was actually revealed that it wasn't the Jean Grey that had died, just the Phoenix as a separate entity, which is, that's better. That's definitely better.
Number 10, Kid Cable. He might not be as powerful as the old man or as wise, or for that matter, as powerful as some of the other youngsters on this list, but Kid Cable has a ton of potential. And to be fair, he is pretty powerful when it comes to outwitting people and working his way out of some pretty sticky situations. He also has the Summer family waiting in the wings to back him up when he needs. While their power is obviously not his own, having both his mom, Marvel Girl, and dad, Cyclops, as frequent allies, as well as the sister Rachel is something that should be noted, because there are many times these days in the Dawn of X line where we see this family supporting one another and teaming up. Cable has his powerful telepathic and telekinetic powers, as well as his love of big guns and big swords to help him qualify as one of the most powerful and sometimes resourceful teen mutants around. Number 9. Jubilee. Jubilee is one of those mutants who also has the potential to be even more powerful the older she gets. As a teenager, her powers were more unpredictable, but she still had that potential to create mass destruction using them. A lot of people think of Jubilee's powers as just being a fun display of fireworks, but she can actually create explosions on a subatomic level, meaning that she has the potential to go nuclear under the right conditions or with the correct amount of training. Her emotional connection with Wolverine gave Jubilee enough power to decimate part of Mandarin's castle when Logan was in danger. While Jubilee might not have seemed like the most powerful teen mutant, she definitely was capable of more than most give her credit for. So now she's pretty much all grown up though, with her son, who is currently a dragon, Shogo, to look after. But she was a teen once, and when she was a teen, she was pretty powerful. She was pretty cool. I like Jubilee, she's one of my favorites. Before we move on to our next point, just a reminder to give that like button a little click. Just give it a little click. It really helps us out on the channel and lets us know that you are loving these mutant lists. And who doesn't love mutant lists? I love mutant lists personally. Let me do more of them, please. Click the like. Number 8. Prodigy. Prodigy is one of the smartest mutants around, and even when he was depowered, he was still pretty powerful. David Elaine was always known for his intelligence, but when his mutant powers activated, he became even more brilliant. His powers allow him to telepathically absorb the knowledge and skill set of those around him. Initially, he worked towards not using his powers and keeping them a secret, trying to resist them because he felt that any knowledge gained this way while he was a student was sort of cheating, which, to be fair, I guess it kinda is. Eventually, he ended up joining the New Mutants and enrolling at the Xavier Institute. Even when he lost his powers, he was still considered to be one of the brightest now depowered mutants around, as he still had the knowledge and skills that he had already absorbed and learned telepathically. He still held on to that. But now he's back to being a mutant because Krakoa. Number 7. X-23, or as we know her now, just Wolverine. As Logan says, you just call yourself Wolverine, there can be two of us. Laura Kinney was created and raised to be a fighting machine. It was all her mother could do to sneak in some normalcy to her daughter's routine. Also, the story of how her creator was forced into bearing her and literally become her mother in that way is pretty messed up. But then again, Laura's whole story is pretty messed up, so there's that. Even as a little kid, she was trained to become an unstoppable killer, and even when she found her way to freedom and the X-Men, as well as Wolverine, her genetic father, who she was a female clone of, she wasn't even safe from a world of killing. She was such a good killer that Cyclops couldn't resist recruiting her to the X-Force, the mutant team that was sent in for less savory and more secretive Black Ops missions.
Number 6. Hope Summers. The first mutant born after the House of M and Decimation storyline. According to Cable, the baby is a messianic figure destined to save both mutant and humankind, and he ends up becoming her adoptive father. However, there were some who didn't agree with his decision, as there was a timeline where she kills everyone instead of saving them. Hope is an Omega level mutant with the ability of unspecified limits to psychically manipulate and mimic the powers of other mutants. This is generally shown as a mimicry of the superhuman mutant abilities of those near her. However, she has demonstrated additional powers, like when she was born, when she unleashed a massive psionic pulse that destroyed Cerebro. During the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, Hope is targeted by the Phoenix Force, and the X-Men want her to accept it because it could revive the dwindling mutant race. The Phoenix Force arrives, and instead of possessing Hope, it possesses and forms the Phoenix 5, and she is taken away to safety. Having learned about a previous Phoenix host who is also trained to become the Iron Fist of her era, Hope visits UT, but UT is unable to help her directly, instead instructing her to learn from Spider-Man based on a vision that he had. Although uncertain if he can teach her, Spider-Man proceeds to tell Hope of his mantra of great power requiring great responsibility, giving her more to think about in her role as the host of the Phoenix Force. He also teaches her about patience, and with these lessons, Hope fights alongside Scarlet Witch against Cyclops, and she not only takes on the full power of the Phoenix and restores the mutant race, but she stops Cyclops in the process. With her destiny fulfilled, she is shown departing Utopia to find a new place for herself. Give her story a read starting with 2008's X-Men Volume 2, number 205. Number 5. Rachel Summers. Let's hop over to Earth 811 for a second to talk about Rachel Summers, aka Prestige, aka Marvel Girl, aka Phoenix. As an alternate reality daughter of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, Rachel inherited some pretty sweet powers. Classified as an Omega level mutant, she is shown to have inherited all of her mother's psionic abilities, with a few extras shown in there for fun. She can manipulate time and is shown incredibly strong empathetic powers that enables her to control, manipulate, and alter the feelings, sensations, and emotions of other sentient beings. Rachel spent quite a while as a brainwashed quote-unquote hound for the authorities, forced to hunt down her fellow mutants before merging with the Phoenix Force, and was then considered the one true Phoenix, as all her abilities and capabilities were maxed out, and the only limit to her power was her own will and imagination. Hopeless might still love all things Jean, but Rachel has definitely proved a more successful host, as they state that adult Jean was definitely the most powerful, but she had her ups and downs, you know, destroying a planet, killing her friends. Rachel, I think, rode that wave just a little bit better. Check out Rachel for yourself, starting with 1981's X-Men number 141. Number 4, Professor X. Already one of the most powerful mutants out there, and definitely one of the best known Marvel characters as well. Now if you're not familiar with Charles Xavier's abilities, let me give you a quick reminder. He is an alpha level mutant said to possess the most powerful brain in existence. Because of this, he is said to be the world's greatest telepath, possessing vast psionic powers. Now funnily enough, in one often overlooked X-Men storyline, Charles Xavier briefly wielded some of the Phoenix's power and was known as the Bald Phoenix. He became a member of the Starjammers, a group of space pirates, and was seriously injured pretty early on, slipping into a coma. He was still able to communicate with them telepathically though, and he eventually merged with the consciousness of the team ship to further assist them. His body seemingly dies in the stasis capsule he was kept in, but his consciousness lived on. Fast forward a bit and it is revealed that Falcon is actually the Phoenix Force, which was residing within the body of Excalibur's Rachel Summers at the time. Rachel had the Force drained from her body by Deathbird, and it was placed in a canister that was later transferred over to Charles. Months after that battle, it's revealed that the Phoenix Force completely revives Charles and imbued him with limited Phoenix Force abilities. Now although he didn't possess the full power, he was still a formidable foe, trust me. I mean, that coupled with his unparalleled telepathic powers would make him one of the most powerful Phoenix hosts the Marvel Universe has ever seen. And considering the somewhat unnerving mental state he's had since founding the mutant nation Krakoa, Xavier could very well turn into Marvel's most dangerous Phoenix as well. Check out this lesser known storyline starting with 1990's X-Men Spotlight 1... Starjammers number 1. Number 3, Wolverine. Logan of Earth 14,412 mirrors his mainstream counterpart's history up to the point where King Loki completely wiped out the humankind to make his brother Thor suffer. Logan ended up dying, but was chosen as the new host of the Phoenix Force, and he began traveling the universe, wiping out celestial bodies to aid the universe as it met its slow death. After encountering a future Loki, Logan was convinced to go back in time and prevent Loki from ever gathering the Infinity Stones, which he gladly did because it gave Logan the opportunity to see his long dead friends one last time. After Wolverine returns to the future, he comes in contact with an old friend, Thor, and then much to Thor's surprise, Logan attacks him pretty much on sight. The two battle it out before eventually putting aside their differences to team up and take down a much bigger threat, Doom. Old Man Phoenix and Thor then face off against Doom, who reduced Logan to nothing but a skeleton with the Spirit of Vengeance's Hellfire, but Logan resurrected and sacrificed himself to transfer the Phoenix Force into Mjolnir, which helped Thor defeat Doom once and for all. Give this Logan story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2017's Marvel Legacy, number 1. Number 2, The Phoenix 5. During 2012's Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, the Phoenix Force is heading towards Earth, and the Avengers, obviously fearing the almighty entity, made Iron Man and Giant Man prepare a disruptor weapon to kill the Phoenix Force. Although instead of killing it, the blast alters the entity and divides it into 5 fragments, which forcefully bonds with 5 X-Men: Namor, Magic, Colossus, Emma Frost, and Cyclops. While the heroes tried to use this awesome power very gallantly and responsibly, they ended up leaving quite a bit of damage in their wake. Hopeless stated that they tried to do good things, and they ended up losing their minds, causing massive world problems and killing Charles Xavier in the process. Also, adding the fact that it seems the more good you try to achieve with this power, the more likely your efforts will backfire. Namor is the first to lose the fragment after being defeated by the Avengers, with Magic and Colossus pretty close behind after they were tricked into defeating each other. Emma Frost, half of the Phoenix Force, was later stolen by Cyclops to increase his power during the final battle with the Avengers and X-Men, and while Cyclops, yeah, he's a bit of a special case, so let's just focus on him for a bit. He was the last one to fall under the corrupted influence of the Phoenix Force and becomes Dark Phoenix after hosting all 5 fragments. But Jean Grey's essence convinces him to let the Phoenix leave his body as he is attacked by Hope Summers and the Scarlet Witch. He gets the Phoenix Force once again in order to decimate the Children of Tomorrow during the insertion between Earth 616 and Earth 1610, retaining the Phoenix even after the remaining universes crashed together, but eventually lost it one last time when he was killed by Dr. Doom. There's a little bit more to the story, but I will let you check it out for yourself, starting with the first appearance of the Phoenix 5 in 2012's Avengers vs. X-Men, number 5. And finally, number 1, Jean Grey. The most powerful and complete Phoenix Force and host combination around. While not acting as the avatar of the Phoenix Force, Jean is already a force to be reckoned with, as she is an Omega level mutant and one of the most powerful telepaths, telekinetics, and psions out there. Her abilities were suppressed at a young age by Charles Xavier after she connected with her dying friend, Annie Richardson. Jean's telepathy was activated when she was transported into the future where Xavier was dead. As stated by Death, Jean is the favored and true avatar of the Phoenix Force. As this avatar, she can greatly increase her powers by tapping into the life energies of those who haven't been born yet. The Phoenix Force also allows its avatars to manifest additional powers, especially in terms of Jean as its quote-unquote host, house, and self. These powers include interstellar travel, cosmic pyrokinesis, immortality, and existence mastery, which means she is able to control the entirety of existence. Now, as I said before, Jean is the strongest and most complete host of the Phoenix Force, and as such, she is even capable of forcibly ripping it out of another host and forcing its status upon herself. There was even a period of time that the two completely merged together and became the White Phoenix of the Crown, allowing her to access the full capabilities of the Almighty Phoenix. Check out Jean and her story for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 1963's X-Men #1.
Number 10. Blackheath. Blackheath is Samuel Smithers. Yep, in the reality of 1610, Plant Man is instead a mutant. His powers are similar to that of Poison Ivy, allowing him to control plant life. Blackheath was one of the mutants who was kept in William Stryker's camps. While there, he ended up meeting and befriending Storm, and would be one of the few mutants left when Utopia came about. Number 9. Mach 2. Mach 2 is Nomi Bloom. She is kind of like the second coming of Magneto, but not as much of a villain. Or at least, she comes around in the end. And not inherently as powerful as Magneto was. She can basically affect and control magnetic fields. Later on, she would see a power boost which would enable her to have more control over objects containing metal. Mach 2 is also known for being a rival to Kitty in terms of her leadership over the surviving mutants of Utopia. People are going to be like, what is Utopia? And I'm going to be like, don't worry. We're getting to that much later, but it's coming. It's slowly you'll get little bits of information. Number 8. Zorn. In the reality of Earth 1610, Zorn is actually Zorn, but is not the only version of Zorn. Wow, that sounded confusing. What I mean to say is that Zorn is his own person, Kuan Yin, but has a sibling who's also named Zorn, but with a Z. They were each given their powers as part of the Southeast Asian Republic's Super Soldier program. Zorn with an X is the one who you typically see clad in the color white. He is an amazingly powerful telepath and telekinetic. While both characters may have been introduced later and have been somewhat short-lived, they are both presented as being pretty powerful during their time in the comics. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 7. Zorn. This is the sibling I was telling you about. Zorn with a Z or a Z is Shen Yin, the brother of Zorn with an X. His powers are much darker in nature. It's actually believed in the comics that Zorn and Zorn were sort of destined to bring a sense of balance to the world and mutant kind, symbolically sort of representing yin and yang, black and white. Zorn's powers are basically akin to a black hole. He emits a black hole energy and can use his powers to manipulate gravity. In the end, Zorn sacrifices himself when he realizes that he cannot win in the war against the children of tomorrow. In his death, he effectively becomes a black hole in retaliation. Number 6. Elixir. Josh Foley's powers first manifested when he was just a teenager, like most mutants. Right away, they were pretty powerful, allowing him to heal people who had life-threatening injuries on the verge of death. He was originally a part of the anti-mutant group known as the Reavers, who kicked him out after learning that he was a mutant, severely beating him when he wouldn't accept their rejection. He just wanted to hate mutants still, but no, you can't, because you are one. Sorry. His parents also disowned him, and with nowhere to go, he was forced to join the Xavier Institute, despite not initially being interested in joining his fellow mutants. Elixir's powers were shown to be so powerful, even from a young age, that he could even heal powers that had been lost, giving Rain, who he had a crush on at the time, her powers back after she lost them when he kissed her. And to people who are like, but healers, are they that great? Because what if they get hurt? He can even heal himself, so yeah, Elixir's pretty cool. Number 5. Kitty Pryde. It's really hard when we are talking about Kitty because I personally just think her mutant powers as they stand are so overpowered. Just in my opinion. We also have to consider that Kitty Pryde kinda got fast-tracked during her time on the X-Men team. When Kitty joined the X-Men, she was basically a teenager and she was already pretty powerful. In fact, she could walk on air back in the original X-Men days. And Kitty also didn't have any trials on other like young X-Men teams. She was kind of just like put on the X-Men right out of the gate. So that is pretty crazy. Straight out of the gate, she was working with the pros. Of course, over time, she has had some of her weaknesses tweaked and even removed, but in exchange for some of her other secondary abilities kind of being lost. Teenage Kitty also went on tons of adventures that were just always seemingly adding and building on her skill set list. And even now as an adult, Kitty, or Kate as she currently prefers to be called, is still one of the most powerful and often, in my opinion, underrated mutants that we have on the X-Men roster today. Number 4. Magic. Magic is insanely powerful, even as a teenager, simply because she spent so long training with the powerful magic user turned demon who kidnapped her years ago, Belasco. Belasco wanted to harness Illyana's powers for himself, seeing her great potential. She eventually became so powerful that she defeated Belasco in his own dimension of Limbo. When she returned to her own dimension, escaping, she was no longer a little girl, though barely any time had passed on Earth while she was gone. It had only been seconds for her fellow mutants since she left, but for Magic it had been years, and she returned as a super powerful teenager with a strong connection to Limbo. While in Limbo, actually, Magic is basically a god, as being in Limbo puts her closer to her power source and effectively makes her almost undefeatable while there. Number 3. Jean Grey. Even when we see any teen versions of Jean, they are known for usually being very powerful. While we might now know Jean as an adult woman who is immensely powerful when she needs to be, or when the plot requires her to go into Phoenix mode and kind of act as a deus ex machina, we also have met younger versions of her thanks to various time traveling shenanigans. Even as a teenager and a child, Jean is often portrayed as being exceedingly powerful. In fact, when she originally met Xavier, her telepathic powers were so great that he was forced to put up mental blocks to protect her from them until she was better equipped to handle such an elevated level of power. And after a few adventures with the X-Men, she did get those blocks removed. She was ready. She was ready for the power. Number 2. Hope Summers. Even as a baby, Hope was super powerful. Hope's just blowing everybody else out of the water. She's like, I've been powerful since I was a little baby and I didn't even know what was going on. She was like, object permeance, what's that? But also, I have immense power. As a teenager, Hope was destined to be the new host of the Phoenix Force, but was prevented from connecting with the Phoenix. However, she was still instrumental in the Avengers vs. X-Men story when she helped Scarlet Witch to erase the Phoenix Force from existence near the end of that story. Even though that doesn't really make much sense now, given that apparently Scarlet Witch isn't a mutant and Hope's powers are to kind of amplify or adopt the powers of other mutants in her area, so that doesn't really make sense now, but anyways. Like Rogue, she can take on other mutants' power sets and even take on multiple at a time. The difference being she doesn't need physical contact to do so, and it does not drain the powers of life energy or life energy of the mutants whom she is emulating. As a baby, she was powerful enough to heal Rogue with one touch, who at the time was dying and comatose. You also basically know you're powerful when you're a mutant when you get your powers earlier than your teen years. That just means you're like the most powerful. Number 1. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, I can't have a list with a name like Teenage and Mutant in the title and not mention the TMNT. Even though I know everyone's probably like, but Amanda, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are not more powerful than Hope Summers. What are you talking about? But this is my list and I want them to be number 1. So that's how it goes. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are definitely some of the most powerful pizza-loving Teenage Mutant Turtles out there. They might not be as powerful in terms of taking other people's powers or becoming a host of the Phoenix Force, but I also bet if they were able to become the host of Marvel's Phoenix Force, were they in the same reality, they would potentially even give Jean and Hope a run for their money. The other thing that makes the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles so powerful is that there isn't just one of them, there's a whole team of them. And working together, there is almost no force of evil that they cannot stop.
Number 10. Dust. To me, Dust is almost the physical embodiment of the Thanos snap, you know? Anyway, Sora Kadir, aka Dust, is a mutant whose abilities allow her to transform her body into, well, dust. She was born in Afghanistan and was sold into slavery. She displayed her powers when a slave trader tried to remove her kneecap, and she flayed him alive. Yes, she flayed him alive. Once the X-Men got knowledge of Soraya and her abilities, they went looking for her and brought her back to the academy. Since Dust is a sand morph, she is able to reform her body into a humanoid or some sort of sand form. In this form, she's most resistant to injury and she's difficult to detect telepathically. In this sandstorm form, she's able to hurt her enemies by scouring the flesh from their bones, as well as being able to enter their lungs, hurting their opponents from the inside.
Number 9. Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde's powers are some of the most useful ones around. She can phase through almost anything and as such can travel into some of the most secure locations in the world without any trouble. Not only that, but she can use her phasing abilities in a fight to become completely untouchable, phasing through her opponents or even making her opponents phase momentarily only to become solid once again with something now lodged inside them. Kitty also received a power upgrade from an artifact known as the Black Vortex, which granted her more control over her powers while also increasing their strength to an extent.
Number 8. Magic. Illyana Rasputin, aka Magic, is the younger sister of Colossus and she's got a pretty long list of abilities. She's able to teleport, she can levitate, she has the power of necromancy, she can absorb souls, she's a master swordsman, she possesses a soul sword, and she can astral project. She's got a large skill set, as you can tell. Illyana was trapped in Limbo after being kidnapped by Velasco. During her time in Limbo, this dimension's version of Storm taught Illyana how to use spells and magic, and the cat is the one who taught her how to be a master swordsman that she is today. She also learned dark magic from Chthon, and he's like one of the most powerful demons in the Marvel Universe, so you know she got a good education from him. In a way. At one point, Illyana was even able to extract a piece of her soul to create the Soul Sword, and she used this to take over Limbo. She then returned to Earth and later learned that she was able to cover her body in Eldritch armor when she summons the Soul Sword. So not only is she a powerful sorcerer, but she also has magical armor to boot.
Number 7. Selene. Selene is known for being a powerful energy vampire and is something we don't really talk often enough about on this channel. She was originally known in the comics for being the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club and is an ancient immortal. So how does she stay looking so young? By feeding on the psychic energy of others. But Selene isn't just a vampire, she is also known for her telepathic and telekinetic skills. She has also been shown to demonstrate other powers over the years like pyrokinesis and has dabbled in magic as well. Not only that, but the energy she consumes can also be used to reinforce her physical strength and speed.
Number 6. Colossus. A strong mutant on Earth 616 and in 1610. Initially, Pyotr Rasputin did not possess super strength as part of his power set, but was given a drug called Banshee to enhance his strength, as well as a job working for the Russian mafia. Eventually, he ended up joining the X-Men, though he would leave the team on a few separate occasions. He'd managed to hold off Scarlet Witch, save a submarine that not even the Ultimates were capable of saving, and defeat Proteus, David Xavier, Xavier's son, who threatened the entire world with violence, traveling around and targeting international landmarks the world over. Differences between Colossus of Earth 1610 and that of Earth 616 is that here he isn't inherently strong, as I said before, in his steel form, but needs Banshee to give him that boost. And he's also gay. He even for a time dates fellow mutant Northstar. Number 5. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy Hudson is the son of Wolverine. He also inherited his claws, superior senses, and regenerative healing factor. Like his dad, it's believed that his powers may actually be based in survival as opposed to just healing, with James being seen as adapting to survive injury or harsh environments as needed. Unlike Wolverine, Jimmy can choose to coat his claws in metal, as this is actually part of his power set, and it's believed that only his claws end up being coated, not the rest of his skeleton. Jimmy was a crucial member of the mutant resistance, which fought against Sentinel and militia attacks that threatened to wipe out the mutants. In the end, the mutants were victorious and were given a choice of going to live on their own piece of land in Utah or taking a cure for their mutation. Jimmy was one of the few mutants who decided to keep his powers. Number 4. Storm. Initially in the Ultimate Universe, Storm didn't have great control over her powers, and mostly got by stealing cars, but after the X-Men took her in, she learned how to control and even master her powers, allowing her to become one of the most fearsome and powerful mutants around. Ultimate Storm is so cool. Storm is so fast, she has been shown to be able to catch people who are falling in midair, dodge bullets, and even keep pace with a plane. Impressive considering planes on average travel at speeds over 540 miles per hour or over 870 kilometers per hour. that's fast. She's also likely not someone you'd want to tangle with, as even when she takes hits in battles, she tends to keep fighting or instinctively strike back. Using her lightning storm and weather control powers, she's also managed to defeat multiple opponents with one single attack, whether they be Sentinel opponents or human opponents, and in some cases, even killing them. I think at one point she kills like 11 people at once, and it's just like, okay. Don't mess with Storm. Got it. I mean, I already knew that before from her 616, but now I really know. Number 3, Jean Grey. In Ultimates, it almost seems there is nothing Jean can't do. Before she joined the X-Men, she was in a mental institution as the manifestation of her powers made her seem insane. However, Professor X would save Jean and recruit her on his X-Men team, with her being the second member. In the Ultimate Universe, we have seen Jean become possessed by what she thought was a cosmic entity referred to as the Phoenix God, and almost lose control and her sanity. The biggest problem with Jean is similar to that of her Earth 616 counterpart. Immense power threatens to basically break her mind, or at least take over her sense of sanity. In the comics, Jean is not only a skilled telepath, and was even able to read Wolverine's mind, something Professor X believed wasn't even possible, but she also happens to, weirdly enough, be a skilled doctor and surgeon as well, although I'm pretty sure she doesn't have any medical license. Say what? Jean was even shown to be capable of connecting and tapping into the multiverse to reach out and see various versions of herself. Basically, she can do everything, because being a telepath is crazy powerful. Number 2, Magneto. Obviously, one of the most powerful mutants out there has to be Magneto, not just for the powers of magnetism that he wields, but also just for his influence. Magneto was the mastermind behind Ultimatum. I suppose I should use the term mastermind lightly there, as Ultimatum in general is not really seen very favorably in most fans' eyes. I admit it was controversial and caused a lot of perhaps needless death. In fact, I would say it was needless death. But you have to acknowledge just how much of a threat it painted Magneto out to be. While I'm not sure about Magneto basically committing genocide as a victim of one himself, you have to admit that this made him one of the most fearsome characters in all of the Ultimate Universe. And for Magneto, there is power in fear, even though oddly enough, it is usually fear that tends to power the hate that he often stands up against. Number 1, Kitty Pryde. One of the most powerful characters as a leader especially. She ends up becoming the ruler of the mutant tent nation that the mutants dub Utopia. This is a portion of land in Utah that the mutants who choose not to accept the cure are given. In fact, all those who refuse to take the cure are forced to live there. Kitty ends up fighting a war against Jean Grey in the Ultimate Universe as well, because Jean wants Kitty to join the mutant nation that she was put in charge of ruling after the death of Zorn with an X, Xian. But Kitty refuses to bring their people together. Kitty is such a good leader, she even steps down from her title as the leader of Utopia to help ease the target on her own people's backs because of her and Jean's conflict. Kitty and Utopia would end up winning that war, and Kitty would also play a crucial role in defeating Galactus as well. Also, I gotta say, that whole World War X thing, it was pretty weird. It was pretty weird, friends.
Number 10, Karma. Karma is a mutant with very specific powers, so it should surprise no one that she is part of the New Mutants team. I actually love the New Mutants for this reason. A lot of their members tend to be forgotten and yet are super powerful when their abilities are properly utilized. Xian Koiman possesses limited telepathic abilities, but can have a strong sense of sort of psychic projection. Karma can emit a wave of energy that disables her target's consciousness, allowing her to take over control of their body. Experiencing what they experience as though she were actually in their body, sensing what they taste, hear, smell, see, and feel. Those she controls will awaken unaware, afterwards experiencing this possession as if they had just been in a dream and basically had been sleepwalking. She can also do this on a mass scale, possessing multiple people, though she must overcome many challenges in order to fluidly control multiple people at once. Number 9, Hijack. Hijack is David Bond, a technopath mutant who can use his abilities to telepathically control any vehicle. He's used his powers to control massive sentinels and even control an entire helicarrier. The rule seems to be if you can steer it, fly it, or drive it, Hijack can control it. Although it has been implied that the vehicle in question likely needs to have some kind of mechanical makeup, so sailboats are probably not something Bond could manipulate, unless you had a sailboat that also had an engine, which I think is a thing now. I don't think all sailboats are just sails. Still, in a world where we are surrounded by tech and tons of engine-powered vehicles, David Bond's abilities are pretty powerful. Alas, he has only appeared in less than 50 issues of comics. Someone tell me, where is David Bond now? Where is he on Krakoa? Is he there? I want to see him. Number 8. Summoner. Summoner is a new mutant whose name also signifies the type of mutant that they are. They are the child of Apocalypse's first horseman of war. Arakko, the landmass itself, was drawn to Krakoa and Krakoa to it. The two fused together to increase the size of the land overall, although Arakko is not yet considered safe and is basically known as kind of the monster territory part of Krakoa. I mean, technically it still isn't Krakoa, but they're attached now, so they are each other. Summoner's abilities allow them to summon the dark beasts of Arakko. We don't know too much about them yet because they've only been in a few issues, but what we do know is that they can withstand the blast of one of Cable's thermal grenades, his last one in fact, without taking virtually any damage. So overall, they seem like they're going to be pretty crazy and powerful. X of Swords, I'm assuming we're going to see more about them. Number 7. Dust. Dust is Soraya Kadir. She was enslaved as a child but freed by the X-Men. Originally, she did not want to reveal herself to the mutants and hid herself by turning into scattered sand. When Jean Grey sensed her presence and encouraged Soraya to reveal and introduce herself, she did so by referring to herself as Turab, which is Arabic for dust. She can turn herself into dust and manipulate her body to move at high speeds, causing her to become a deadly sandstorm to her enemies. As sand particles, she can also enter the bodies of other people, causing internal damage. Dust is also resistant to magic and telepathic manipulation or detection while in her sand form. Dust is another person that I feel like we never see enough of in the comics. Someone bring back Dust.
Number 6. Hope Summers. Basically, Hope Summers is Mutant Jesus. Hope was the first mutant born after the Decimation, the event where Scarlet Witch wiped out all but 198 mutants. When Hope was born, there was a hunt for her. Some believed that she was the mutant messiah, and others believed that she was some sort of antichrist. It was discovered that Hope had the ability to enhance, activate, and mimic the powers of others, and these powers came in handy when she was trusted with the task of going to look for other mutants that they called lights. When finding these other mutants, Hope was able to calm them, stabilize their powers, and even awaken their abilities. On top of all this, it was also revealed that Hope was the new Phoenix, but this force was so unstable and unpredictable, Hope and Scarlet Witch joined forces, said no more Phoenix, and the Phoenix Force just dispersed around the world, giving birth to new mutants and restoring the mutant population. So not only is Hope able to influence the X genes of the lights, she was also strong enough to become the new host of the Phoenix Force and then have the power to disperse it around the globe. She's OP. That's just my take on it. She's OP.
Number 5. Emma Frost. On the flip side of the coin from Selene, who we talked about earlier, we have Emma Frost, the White Queen. Emma is also known for being a very powerful telepath, and while she might not be as versatile as Selene, she doesn't need to feed on psychic energy like Selene does. Emma Frost is often referred to as the White Queen from her time as being a part of the Hellfire Club as well. She was the White Queen. See what I'm saying? Emma started out originally as a villain in the comics but didn't stay one for long, eventually reforming and even joining the X-Men team. She's an adept teacher and leader in addition to her powers. She's not only an immensely skilled telepath, but also possesses her diamond form, which makes her almost indestructible in battle. Almost.
Number 4. Rogue. Rogue is the adopted daughter of Mystique, so you already know that if Mystique likes her, there's gotta be something special about her. We covered this in our last collab together, but Mystique isn't really the best mom, so for her to willingly take on the responsibility of being a mom, it's gotta be for a good reason. She's given away too many kids already. Rogue is another super powerful mutant. She has the ability to absorb the life forces, abilities, personality, and other physical characteristics of others through touch. She also had superhuman strength during the period of time that she had absorbed Carol Danvers' powers and personality within her. Now just think about how OP that is. Not only does Rogue have the ability to take the powers of others, but in certain scenarios she's also able to tap into the stolen abilities and use them against her opponent. This happened a lot while she had Carol Danvers still inside her, because not only was she able to tap into her abilities, but Carol was also able to take over Rogue's body in a way when Rogue was unconscious or under a lot of stress. So that's pretty powerful if you ask me. Also, a little side fact for ya, Mystique would have actually been Rogue's biological mom if the character's creator Chris Claremont hadn't left Marvel in 1991. So there you go.
Number 3. Storm. Storm is referred to as a goddess for a good reason. She is a mighty hero who wields influential power over the elements. While this doesn't seem to be a power that Thor often reaches for in the comics, despite also possessing that, Storm does not shy away from using her mutant gifts against her enemy. When fighting Storm, you'll want to watch out, as it is easy for her to call down a bolt of lightning to strike you at any point. As a child, she also possessed a fear of small spaces, known as claustrophobia. In the past, when this fear has been evoked, like when Doom encased her in a form-fitting metal shell, Storm has also been shown to tap into the full potential of her powers, creating storms massive enough to envelop the whole planet. Number 2. Rachel Summers. One of the most powerful and often underrated mutants of all is Rachel Summers. Rachel is the daughter of Scott Summers and Jean Grey from an alternate timeline. She was born with a small part of the Phoenix within her. Instead of her mother perishing after the X-Men's clash with the Shi'ar, Jean lived and married Scott. Together they had Rachel, and because this version of Jean was still bonded with the Phoenix Force at the time, a part of the cosmic entity lives on in Rachel. Aside from her connection to the Phoenix Force, which grants her awesome powers, enhancing both her telekinetic and telepathic powers as well, Rachel also possesses the ability of time manipulation. Her time manipulation powers are complex and can be useful in a variety of ways, such as when we see her use them in 2020's X Factor in issue 1, to chrono-skip through the time of an object belonging to Northstar's sister, Aurora, in order to track her down and investigate her death.
Number 1. Jean Grey. Jean Grey is probably one of the most, or even the most powerful mutants, simply because of her ability to control the Phoenix Force. Going from being X-Men's weakest member to being its strongest, Marvel Girl died, and like a phoenix was reborn as well, Phoenix. In the Uncanny X-Men issues 101 to 108, also known as the Phoenix Saga, we watched as Jean became the powerful mutant Phoenix, and then in Uncanny X-Men 129 to 138, we saw her evolve into Dark Phoenix. The Phoenix Force is the sum of all life in the universe, and it takes hosts through time, so this thing is already pretty damn powerful. But things get cranked up a few notches when Phoenix is corrupted by evil, taking on the new Dark Phoenix persona. In this state, she consumes a star and 5 billion people on a nearby planet. Now if that doesn't scream all-powerful being, then I don't know, man. Ultimately, Jean's personality buried way down there manages to take control, and the Phoenix ends up dying by suicide. Again, even when she's not technically the all-powerful Phoenix, Jean's personality was strong enough to sort of take down the Phoenix from the inside. Also, after her death, she was in the white hot room. Death told Jean that because her spirit was most closely carved from the Phoenix, that she was destined to take on the Phoenix Force. Obviously, it takes a very strong person to be considered a perfect fit for the Phoenix.
Number 10. Prodigy. I feel like a lot of people maybe forgot about Prodigy, as he's been MIA for some time in the comics, and was depowered during the events of M-Day. But with the magic of Krakoa and Dawn of X, he was able to return to us, being resurrected and also regaining his powers. 1. Prodigy happens to be a super genius, but this is also because he's a telepath with the ability to basically mimic anyone's skill set and share their knowledge while nearby. This has also been shown in the past to extend to fighting precognition, where he can basically use his abilities to read a person and predict their next move of attack in a battle, which is pretty sweet. He often also builds his own advanced tech, and even when depowered is known to possess a great level of intellect, making him a challenging adversary whether or not he has his mutant abilities. Even as a depowered mutant, you might not want to mess with him. Number 9. Lady Mastermind. Lady Mastermind, aka Regan Wingard, recently popped back up in the giant-sized Nightcrawler comics and was welcomed into the mutant nation of Krakoa. Some, however, may not know or appreciate her mutant history and background. Just who is Lady Mastermind? Well, she's the daughter of Jason Wingard, aka the original villain known as Mastermind. Her powers take after her father's, allowing her to create realistic illusions projected into her target's minds. While she also has an even lesser known suspected half-sister, Regan's powers are often depicted as being the more powerful between the two, with it even being said that her abilities are even more stronger than her father's. Additionally, she is also fairly skilled in hand-to-hand combat, a skill set her father actually very much lacked. He was hilarious in a fight. He's like a rag doll. Sorry, Mastermind. Number 8. Gentle. Gentle is a mutant with the abilities of super strength. I know, very hilarious considering his name. He can grant himself immediate muscle mass that basically allows him to change size and increase his strength when needed. It is yet unknown just how strong Gentle can make himself, and he is also known for being someone who could potentially even take on the Hulk, although he is more of a pacifist, hence his name. Gentle's real name is Nezno Abidemi. I hope I'm saying that right. Nezno Abidemi. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. It's a hard one to say. He was raised in Wakanda, but always felt like an outsider because his father was Russian. When his mutant abilities surfaced, it was actually Aurora Monroe Storm, who was queen at the time in Wakanda, who encouraged him to be sent to the Xavier Institute so he could learn how to better control his powers. His vibranium tattoos are also meant to help him to control those powers. Also, vibranium tattoos are super cool, but I think they're also super painful to get, so maybe don't get them. You can't, because it's not a real substance, but still. Number 7. Egg. Fabio Medina might not seem like a powerful mutant based on his ability, but since his rise to the supremely important mutant group known as the Five on Krakoa, he can be considered one of the most important and powerful mutants around. When he combines his powers with that of the Five, he has control over life and death. Originally, the bouncy gold balls that he shot forth from his chest were believed to be nothing special, but it was later revealed that these balls were actually infertile eggs, which could be used in the process of resurrecting new mutants. Number 6. Layla Miller. Layla's abilities, skills, and powers tend to be pretty specific, which means that she might not inherently seem powerful to readers. Layla has been shown to be able to reanimate beings, heal wounds, and appears to be immune to reality warping. She also has a lot of knowledge about her own future life and the events surrounding it, as she spent time in the future and then returned and uploaded all she had learned into her younger self when she returned to that Layla's present, which I guess was technically her past. Her vast knowledge often comes in handy and is what helped the mutants to figure out who was really after the baby mutant Messiah during the events of Messiah Complex. Her own knowledge has also technically helped her in gaining the knowledge that she has needed to have in order to gain it, if that makes any sense. Timey-wimey stuff. Number 5. Maxime and Manon. Maxime and Manon are twin siblings born to mutant parents. Their powers as such manifested when they were younger than most. They haven't been in a ton of comics, most about probably 11 issues, but they have been shown to be pretty deadly and powerful even as children, both in Extermination and recently in the newest run of New Mutants. Maxime can influence others' emotions, while Manon can alter someone's memories, or recall their memories past. When combined, their powers actually allow them to manipulate the minds of others to the point that they can easily control them, shaping their victims into whatever they'd like them to be and making them do whatever they want. In issues 3 and 4 of New Mutants, both Maxime and Manon were captured along with Armor, Glob, Angel Salvador, Beak, and the couple's children, but managed to escape. Manon and Maxime helped to free the rest of the group by distracting their captives, manipulating one of them into killing the other. Number 4. Mirage. You might not recognize her mutant name, but if you've seen the New Mutants film, or you are familiar with the New Mutants at all, Mirage will be someone that you maybe know. Mirage is actually Daniel Moonstar. Standard X-Men fans may be less familiar with Dani, but she has also been one of the X-Men, and she is known for her affiliation with the New Mutants crew and all the female defenders who are also known as Valkyroar. Dani herself became a Valkyrie when the New Mutants were kidnapped by Amora the Enchantress and taken to Asgard, so she doesn't just have her mutant power of illusion creation and telepathy, which originally she could only use to recreate the fear of others, but she also has some of the powers granted to Valkyries. Oh, and she can make cool psionic arrows too. Number 3. Strong Guy. Strong Guy has similar powers to another mutant we talked about on part 1 of this list. His abilities allow him to use kinetic energy to augment his strength, increasing it. However, he cannot hold the energy for long, as it could severely harm him, distort his physical form, or even kill him. Still, even with the rule that he must expel any absorbed energy within less than 2 minutes of absorption, he is pretty powerful, using his powers to safely lift up to around 100 tons. Strong Guy's real name is Guido Carosella, and he first appeared in the original New Mutants series in issue 29. Number 2. A mutant with no name. In the alternate reality belonging to the Ultimate Universe of 1610, we got a story that introduced us to a mutant who had no name. This mutant's powers were so devastating that we were not permitted the time to get to know him. His powers had only just manifested, but they were so deadly that they caused the deaths of over 200 people in his hometown, including his parents and his girlfriend at high school, with the deaths being almost instantaneous. But there was no snapping involved. It wasn't a Thanos thing. No Infinity Gauntlet. gauntlets. His mutant power was basically to kill everything around him, radiating toxins and poisons that basically vaporize organic tissue. He was so dangerous, powerful, and deadly that Wolverine was sent to eliminate him, as the young mutant's existence posed too much of a threat to the mutant image, as well as both humans and mutants alike, just in general. Number 1. Matthew Malloy. Matthew Malloy is one of the strongest, most random mutants who now belongs to the alternate timeline of Earth 14923 because he was just too powerful to basically continue to exist. Like many of the most epic mutants, he had reality warping powers and was additionally considered Omega level in terms of his ability. Matthew's powers unfortunately were often tied to his emotions, which proved problematic and often resulted in massively destructive outbursts of energy. In the end, Tempest traveled back in time and, with help from Professor X of the past, was able to prevent Matthew's parents from ever meeting, meaning that he was never born.